Hey everybody, so last week I did a basic kitchen video on the basics of cooking a basic meal. And this week I wanted to show you the basics of cooking a white meat such as chicken. So when you're using chicken, especially more than red meat, you want to make sure that you're not using it past the expiration date. If you are freezing the chicken, make sure that you use it immediately after it defrosts. So what you want to do to defrost the meat, if you have frozen it in the freezer, is to keep it in the fridge for a day or a day and a half. If you need to defrost it sooner, get a bowl of warm water, keep the chicken in the bag, and put it in the bowl of warm water for a couple of hours, and the chicken should be defrosted. You can tell by if you kind of squeeze the bag, you can tell that it's not hard or icy anymore. So chicken is a little bit harder to cook, and you want to make sure that you cook it thoroughly. And the reason chicken is harder to cook is because a lot of times it ends up dry because it is a white meat. So you can cook chicken in a lot of different ways. Chicken comes with the skin on or the skin off. There's also the dark or the white meat, and it also comes with the bone in or the bone out. Now, if you're cooking a chicken breast, which most people do, this boneless, skinless chicken breast, there's gonna be a lot of lack of flavor. So you wanna make sure you add it in by using spices and also by marinating your meat correctly. If you're using the dark meat, you won't have to worry about marinating it as much, or if you keep the skin on, but you're going to have to cook it longer. That also applies if the bone is in the chicken. You will have to cook it longer than the time says. So there's a lot of different ways to cook a chicken. You can fry it, you can bake it, or you could just cook it on the pan like a stir fry. What I suggest, the healthier ways to cook it is obviously baking it or grilling it or cooking it like a stir fry. But what you want to do, like I said before, is always marinate your chicken first. So I always use citrus. This is what I have. I have a lime. Sometimes you can use lemon or grapefruit or orange, and that really helps to tenderize the meat. The acid helps to soften the meat up. You just squeeze one or maybe two. Okay. You can go ahead and keep the lime in there. It will help to marinate it, and then once you start cooking, just take it out. I usually use some pepper. Just gives the meat some flavor. Cumin. Oregano. And salt a little bit. Now, a lot of times I actually am able to get away with not using salt because I use the lemon and that helps flavor the meat already. But you can use a little bit of salt. Just put a little bit of salt, and you can slowly take away the salt from your marinating process if you need to. Now, like I said last week, I discovered a cool trick for chicken is you just add a little bit of plain yogurt right here, and you put it in with the meat, and you close it up, and you kind of help mix it around. This is a trick that a lot of the Mediterranean diets have to help tenderize the meat. And that way you don't even have to use a lot of salt, and it really makes the meat taste good, and you don't have to add too much butter or oil when you're cooking. So, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to cook the chicken, like baking, frying, grilling, stir fry. The easiest way I would suggest at first to cook the chicken is to stir fry. And the reason is because you cut the meat into tiny little pieces, and you make sure that you cook. You could always make sure you cut the meat open to make sure it's fully cooked. Now, if the meat looks a little pinkish, it's not cooked. And for chicken, you want to make sure you cook it all the way through so it's white. Even if you burn it a little bit, that's safer, maybe less tasty, but safer than undercooking your chicken. So a lot of mistakes common mistakes that people make when cooking any meat, especially chicken, is you try to turn the temperature too high. Make sure you follow the directions because it might be cooked on the outside, but the meat won't be cooked on the inside. So make sure if you're baking or if you're grilling that you don't put the temperature too high. Also, a lot of times it's easier, especially if you're a beginner cook, to slice the meat in half. Sometimes you get these big old chicken breasts and it's hard to cook it all the way through. So maybe cut it in half, or a lot of times people pound it with like a tenderizer just to make it a little bit thinner and easier to cook. All right, so what you do with this marinating process is you marinate it for an hour or two at least, or up to 12 hours, and that should really help tenderize the chicken. Let me know how it goes for you and if you need any other help on how to cook your chicken. Thank you for watching. Bye.